I am sorry that for certain technical reasons I was absent for a while. I will continue at the same time the shortage used to remind me not only the situation of the leadership of Prime Sultan Bashar Sima. I want also to remind the creation of the so-called movement Tigray Tigray led by Walda Mariam. This left it there, and before the declaration of Awati, of the Eritrean People's Army, the revolution of Nasser in Egypt granted a radio program for Eritrea led by Walda Mariam. It was not that much strong, but also it didn't last long due to the Ethiopian diplomatic strength at that epoch and the assistance that gained Ethiopia from all parties to create pressure against Nasser. As such, that didn't continue, but there were ways and means to continue, even in writing. But I think the limitation of those people was there. So there are some students who pushed greatly for ingratiating the Eritrean people's need for freedom. Not only in Eritrea, those who migrated from Akrugzai, from Barka, from Sanhit, from Sahel, from Samar in Egypt, they created the so-called Eritrean Liberation Front movement. When Eritrea, still the armed struggle was not declared. This was in 1960. And this students' movement, which created that movement, which later on associated to the Eritrean People's Armed Struggle, was stolen by the remnants of Eritrean Liberation Movement, including President of the Eritrean Parliament at that epoch, Sheikh Idris Muhammad Ali, a director of high school, of middle school in Masawa, Usman Saleh Sabbe, and other politicians dismantled the movement created by our students. Later on, they said that they made a meeting with Awadi, but the first regrouping to dismantle that reality from the students were friendly among them. But there are not real, tangible records of those who named themselves higher council leadership, presidents, Sheikh Idris Muhammad Al, secretary, Osman Saleh. Osman was very active. He was moving. He tried. But the absence of Awate, that means Awate in 1962 was dead. And his death was kept secret due to the fame, to the courage, to the greatness of that man, because his name only was terrorizing all the enemies. The Eritrean Liberation Front began with 7 men and chief, and most of those main historical heroes were in the Sudanese army. They kept secret the name of the death of Hamid Hawati. And Hamid did his best to enlarge before his death the free territory. So there was not any Ethiopian force. There were police stations. In 3 years' time, the western province, Barka and Sahel, were totally liberated. The participation of Highland Eritrea practically was like a 3 federal states. The western province, Sahel, Barka, Bokos, Sahel. The eastern province, Samar and Nakalia, in the Eritrean highlands, Hamasina Kulukzain Sarai. So the participation of Hamasina and Kulukzain Sarai was not much due to the old criminal, fascistic, racistic differences created by the British to distort the Islam people, not to continue their struggle for freedom. Somehow, the only army which was confronting the Israeli Liberation Front was under the name of Field Force, Eritrean Police Field Force, created by the British. And in 1963, after 2 years of the creation of the Israeli Liberation Front, that army disappeared from being. And in 1963, the right hand of Haile Selassie, the man who was creating every and any disturbance against any Israel, Tedla Ogbit, was killed in 1963 in his own office by 2 Ethiopian colonialists sent by Haile Selassie. The reason was clear. Haile Selassie transferred that personality from Eritrea to Ethiopia, particularly to Addis Ababa, but he don't want to go there. He thought that he, unfortunately, Haile Selassie didn't bother, cancelled that man. It was the end. And Another instrument for the leadership of the Eritrean police force was created under the guidance of Maria Mazazin. A weak personality, but was used by all the Ethiopian Chin and ancient groups, including the Order of Haile Selassie, the creation of the so-called police commando. It was a wonderful selection of all ignorant but their personal structure was big and huge. Those also lasted 2 years. All this was a tactic to prepare the Ethiopian real army enter Eritrea and create. On the other hand, every morning, the development, the enlargement of the Eritrean liberation front was becoming greater and greater. As such, in order to dominate totally the Eritrean liberation front, arms front, the arms part, the so-called High Council divided the Eritrean Liberation Front for enlarging it, copying the Algerian system in 1964. It was divided into 4 parts. Part 1, Barca alone, including guys. Part 2, Karen, making Sahel the second greatest division of Eritrea, part of Bogos, part of Karen. 3, for the highland. 4, for the Eritrean eastern province. Therefore, Muhammad Ali Umaro was chosen as the leader of the 4th division. For the 2nd division, Umar Zaz, part of the founders of the Eritrean People's Army struggle. Number 3, Abdul Karim from Sana'a, to create the 3rd division from Akluk Ahmad Sabai. And number 1, Barka and Gash. And here, the situation of the divisions was different. Number 3 was for good. Number 4, having Sabbe in the High Council, were full of all and every kind of assistance. I mean armored wise, food wise, and clothing. Number 1, the same thing. But what was and how was that going on? Automatically, the High Council created another leadership in the Sudan, named the Revolutionary Leadership. But unfortunately, not unfortunately, but these people didn't know what was, but they were under the service of the leaders in the High Council who can provide them with money. As such, the front was going the armed struggle was going one direction, and the so-called revolutionary leadership in the Sudan was making out of that part greater and greater. So little mistakes began to appear within the lines of the armed struggle. And in 1965, once again, Sabbe created the fifth division only for Hamashin. But the greatness of the Islam people's armed struggle was incredible. And the entrance of the Ethiopian armed forces took place, coming with great pleasure. The Eritrean Liberation Front or the Eritrean People's Armed Struggle Army surprised totally Ethiopian regular army, which was helped by America, British, Israel itself. Things going on in this way, the young generation inside the Eritrean Liberation Front created a group known as a movement of repair, حركة الإصلاح. This group was not strong enough to go fastly, but alternatively, after the death of Awate, though there were so many heroes, they could not stop the secretly moving tribal movement. As such, appeared a young personality with the name Abdullah Idris Muhammad. Abdullah was really a great military leader. He led so many battles himself. As such, those who were appearing every now and then began to disappear. Unfortunately, all the crises inside the Bani Amr family created a bit of hatred between the Bani Amr and the Maria tribe. This reflects in the Eritrean people's armed struggle and clear. Therefore, the repair movement played a big role. In other words, there is one historical movement that can be well analyzed. The Eritrean liberation movement had an able leading members like Muhammad Said Naud and others. Maybe if these people were with their capacity and ability ready to create a dialogue, it could have been better. But they used to impose themselves by force as such certain tribal groups exploited that movement and the so-called need of the Israeli liberation movement of creating its own group rather than uniting and leading the Israeli front was the initiative of the differences that were taking place in that movement. And the use of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church by Haile Selassie and those infiltrated personalities to show out that the Israeli armed struggle movement is not a real Eritrean but a Muslim movement, which is not true. This propaganda was playing its role in taking away able and capable personalities to escape, not to. In addition to this, certain infiltrated personnel began to give up their hand to Ethiopia. It was a message, and Ethiopia or those who represent Ethiopia in Eritrea was using that arm as a religious arm, presenting them in their mobility of information. For example, Eritrea, during the Federation Act, had two newspapers, daily newspapers. The Arabic Zaman, the same name, Zaman in Tigrinya, and one Italian newspaper, daily, known as Il Quotidiano Eritreo. The Italian newspaper was cancelled. The name of her Zaman and Zaman was changed to name of unity. These newspapers chooses to repeat the difference or that Muslim movement and so on and so forth. Therefore, those brave heroes inside Eritrea, guided by Abdullah Idris Muhammad, made the first District Congress to dismantle the divisions and did a congress known as the Ansabat Congress in 1967 and united Division number 3, Division number 4, and Division number 5. Division number 1 was not there. Division number 2 was not there. And unfortunately, though certain unfortunately politically have a little meaning, Umar Azaz led a group of 9 heroes and invaded the Dabrsala Ethiopian base. That's war created disaster. We lost heroes. And that was the beginning of the end of the High Council, the council led by Sheikh Idris Muhammad Ali Mansabbi, the council that was propagating for individuals, not for itself, during foreigners. And using Islam to have money from the so-called Islamic fast Ramadan from Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries of this movement. And that money collected by the name of Islam was used by Japanese group only. In fact, the Ansaba Congress, which brought in action the unity of the three divisions, in that Congress, three elements, important elements at that table, Abdulaziz Muhammad, Isaac Afwerki, and Muhammad Ali Amro were selected as leaders of that. And to continue their contact with number 1 and 2 to create greater unity. Unfortunately, Isaac Afwerki and Muhammad Ali Amro were contacted in several ways by Sabbe. And Sabbe had his goal to strengthen himself and to use, be it Isaac, be it Amro. When they came back, the situation of the Eritrean Liberation Front in general was increasing in force, but administration-wise, things were not in a good situation. As in other words, the Islah movement or the repair movement with cadres like Abdullah Suleiman, Abdul Qadir Suleiman, Hamid Mahmoud, and others made a fertile, created a fertile land for the unity, which led to the Adobaha Historical Congress. In that context, totally divisions disappeared and the unity of the Eritrean Liberation Army was declared. To make that Congress historical, there were elected 38 persons. Isaac was one of those 38. And Isaac was sent to the highland to enforce the Eritrean Liberation Front. At the same time, in Barca, certain movements were moving fastly, and another group known as Bani Amr group created the first moments of division. Muhammad Ali Amaro was suspended, and with him the other three division leaders, including Abraham Folder. But that suspense was not to punish or stop those leaders, but to study how was the situation, why were the differences increasing, and Sebbe from outside. And here, the story of Sebbe began to take other ancient directions. Sebbe was to rise of that unity. As such, he made his first congress in Amman, and he made all his tactics to create his own group. Amaro was prepared for that action, and the historical small differences between the eastern and western province were seen there. Therefore, inside the Hela, a group of fighters made their own meeting, and from that meeting and from the meeting of Amman was created the so-called People's Liberation Front. Imagine. Therefore, now the way of unity, the way of the Fourth Liberation Army began to show their moves. Those small group of Bani Amr obeyed. Therefore, in that epoch, there was a necessity, important necessity, indispensable enough to create a group that can confront that situation, facilitate the ground for more cooperation, for respect, for resolving the problems. Therefore, it was the occasion for the creation of the Labour Party, which was known figuratively as the Communist Party. In 69-70, when there is one occasion to be recorded well. In 69, young men and women for good sought to create that party for resolving the questions. At the same time, in 69, in the Sudan, Numeri overthrew the government. Military coup d'etat. The real leadership of the Numeri coup d'etat was the Sudanese Communist Party, led by two important colonels, Hashim al-Atta and his comrade. So when that coup d'etat took place in 69, they were coming back to the Sudan. Unfortunately, in Libya, there was another coup d'etat led by a group of little officers. And suddenly, with so many tricks, Gaddafi took place or took the power. And kidnapped the plane that was taking these two leaders, Sudanese leaders to the country. He arrested them and handed them to Numeri. At the same time, in Somalia, Siad Barre led a coup d'etat. And that country was called liberated in 62, was not able to continue democratically and create. Therefore, the arrival of Siad Barre didn't confront large problems like that which happened in the Sudan. And at the same time, the creation of the Labour Party, though the country was fertile, they were not able to create sufficient cadres that come from. Unfortunately, they entered in theory, and rather than making that party part of the Eritrean Liberation Movement, they want to monopolize the Eritrean Liberation Movement. And the creation of that party, so many Eritreans from outside Eritrea, particularly from Europe, they hugged that movement. That movement had a full time to study what was going on, but the initial of that movement was not almost fertile. One of the founders of that party, Ahmed Al Umar, was part of that global divisionist party. In the highland, there was the system. The number 5 division, led by Wardai Hazai, all the leadership of that division, including some elements, gave up to Ethiopia's hand. And the declaration was that we cannot find with Muslims because Muslims were killing us. The same that correspond with Ethiopian politics. In fact, after that, this helped the creation of another movement led by Isaias and set a very dangerous manifesto. No one understood that manifesto at that moment perfectly. And they declared their goal. That manifesto, which say we and our aims, pointed out technically important points, saying that Christians do not possess fertile lands. Yeah, we have Christian names, but we are not Christian disease. Imagine what was that kind of, it was extremely negative. The only well-studied persons were there because as far as I clearly showed in my introduction, when the British opened schools, it's time for running. But before that, there were not schools. Italians embodied ignorance. Therefore, hundreds of young people from the Eritrean lowlands were going to the Sudan, to Egypt. While the highlanders, particularly after the closure of so many factories and industries, went to Ethiopia. So the Eritrean immigration practically began in 1955. As such, be they like it or they hate it, that type of division, which began at the Iboko, that kind of, they had sufficient time to correct it. Herein, I would like to record an English poet that say, little mistakes increase and collect, like streams become lakes, lakes become rivers and seas and oceans. Those little mistakes inside Eritrea, particularly inside the armed struggles, had it been those who later on created their own parties, sat together with patient tolerance and corrected them, maybe the face of Eritrea today, which is suffering more and more, would have never took place. It happened. And here another point to be well recorded is that the creation of the so-called Eritreans for freedom, Eritreans for liberation, was created in Europe from all those of the highland. Also, looking at that form, they were, or they had, the information of the things going on from one part. They didn't study what was going on. Therefore, now the politics took another form. There was one united under the name of the Eritrean Liberation Board, and another fragmented under a united front. Take care. People's Liberation, People's Liberation Forces, not People's Liberation Front, People's Liberation Forces. It means a united front. Everyone can go with the other unless they arrive at some goal and dismiss the one in order to be one and return back to what they said in their manifesto. We are not Arab, it's not our, we are not Arab. Here, there is a very, very, very poisonous message. There was not a referendum that created the Arab language in Eritrea to be the main language of Tigrinya. It was the United Nations so-called Federation Act that created it, including the flag. There was not any clear flag chosen by the Eritrean people to have it. And the recent flag by the group of the EPLF themselves in 1977, when they issued it and were confronted by the cadres of the Eritrean Liberation Front, they said it's an emblem of our front. Now they made it the national flag without the same thing, but it's not the point of discussing the same things. It is the point of analyzing them. Why we arrive at so, and where are we going? What are we going to leave for our sons and daughters? Lies and propaganda? No. It's our responsibility to respond. Be it we like it or we hate it, those errors happen. We were part of them. And we know all that they were not correct and they were not corrected. But we had a very important principle. Criticism and self. Now it's time to tell the truth, to take out the exact things that happen without thinking. Situation being in this way, some began to move in the Arab countries, telling most of the Arab countries that the Eritrean Liberation Front is the communist front. And the newly, we and our aims group of Isaac and were showing the Eritrean island the same Ethiopian propaganda. They are Arabs, they are Muslims, as if and this propaganda went on up to 1974. And all the forces from all sides, when they began beating strongly the Ethiopian armies almost was retreating from every and any great region. In 1975 was the era where the Eritrean armed forces, without any distinction, almost occupied Asmara. Now the divided forces were not ready to occupy the leadership of the country. Therefore, everyone did his own tactics to escape from that reality. Here, there are points to be well recorded. In 1971, the Eritrean Liberation Front held its first National Congress. In that National Congress, though it was a positive move, happened a very great error. They condemned one, two parts of the going on division, particularly of that of Obal and Zuhaila. They named them counter-revolutionaries without creating a committee for dialogue. Contrary that with the group of we our and our aims. So they represent Christians, therefore with them we must dialogue. And in that Congress, the appearance greatly of the newly created party under the name of Labour Party secretly, one of the highest members of that was chosen as vice president. Who was that? Horoy Talabayro. Abdullah Idris Muhammad was chosen as a military head. All the other important cadres, like Azenia Shin, Ibrahim Muhammad Ali, Totil, were elected in the leadership. As such, the difference of all the fronts, be it small or great, began to be hot and create problems within the masses themselves. Therefore, the LP must be able to at least present certain objective ideas. No, everyone from that part began to run in his own direction. Therefore, the ELF leadership at that time changed the name called Revolutionary Council. As far as Huri was asked to create a proper way for correcting the relation with the we in our aims group. With Huri, Ibrahim Hamid Idris Totil was sent. At that epoch, Hamid Idris Totil didn't know a word from the Syrian language. Therefore, the discussion began in a part of Muslim between Isaias and the Huroi. And some of the big fathers there. Totil was left roaming within the security active members of that front, and what was going on between Huri and Isas, no one knew. But the greatest force, be it of the ELF, be it of the EPLF, was pushing strongly against the Ethiopian army. As such, Asmara, the capital, was living in terror. And before the fall of Asmara, which was almost in hand, the ELF, particularly the Labour Party, began moving to dismantle the total power alone, and particularly they want to exclude Roy Talabayro from that leadership, from the regular leaders of the ELF, because he was the vice president. Therefore, the unseen or the secret party cannot do anything. Therefore, they called for an urgent second national congress. In other words, the unity of the struggling forces within the we and our aims and the people's forces of Sahara was mature enough to be one. And after the Second National Congress in the ELF, with so many difficulties, Huri was excluded, and Ahmed Nasser was elected as president of the ELF. And here, Sabbe, studying well the situation of himself and of his group, automatically bribing Sudanese leaders, asking them for the unity, to help him for the unity of Israel. In Khartoum, in May 75, there was the first meeting, and Sabbe presented his cards and brought to them all the members, including Wallah Mariam. Start with the ELF leadership led by Ahmed Nasser, including in that meeting Malak Takhre, which was elected in the Second National Congress. They declared to the world, beginning from Khartoum, capital of Sudan, that they have united Eritrea. Unfortunately, a declaration from the forces in the Eritrean arena that belong to the part of Sabbe negated Sabbe and his group, and the division became officially, and Sabbe once again created a group, and the ELF to participate in solving that problem. They want to do it even with both of the fronts. Within the leadership of the Labour Party, there was not any clear look to what was going on. So they called for a meeting of the Revolutionary Council. That meeting cannot take place because in the Sudan there were problems. A young colonel overthrown Nimeri, but failed. Again, the difference between Nimeri and Qaddafi was becoming greater and greater. So Qaddafi tried to infiltrate arms to the Sudan, to the opposition. First, he called his son or his friend Sabbe and gave him a lot of money, asking him to collaborate. Sabbe was able to tranquilize Qaddafi in one hand, in another hand, to tell Qaddafi that the ELF can do a lot because most of the areas near the Sudan, near that part, and the stronger that can hit Numeri are in the hands of the ELF. So Gaddafi sent his men to sit with the ELF. The ELF revolution didn't accept that invitation because it had a full information of what was going on. So the coup d'etat took place, and automatically Numeri, having a small information and not more, accused the Eritrean Liberation Front as early of Gaddafi against him and stopped Ahmed Nasser, the president of India, including Azden Yassin, the foreign head of the Eritrean Liberation Front, and some other members of the Eritrean Liberation Front in Khartoum to arrest them. Unfortunately, once again, he received that the ELF refuses the offer. So, as an excuse, this particular personality, the other dictator and regressive personality, to present as a gift for the Eritrean armed forces a radio 3 hours time. And here began another movement. Therefore, the two groups, one in Eritrea as an armed horn, other as political force in the form led by Shepe, did all what they can to destroy the ELF and the ELF itself due to the weakness of that monopolizing party was not successful. Things in this way large problems began to appear. Therefore, here, be it the Sudan, be it Saudi Arabia, real elements or instruments that were supposed to make an end to that struggle began to work more hard and to create other division. So the unity of Eritrea was going far and far away from reality. But the lack that led to have the radio in hand helped the Eritrean Branch Liberation Front to clear out the sense of all words and actions of the so-called EPLF. All trials of unity were failed. Unfortunately, when the radio began, at the first, that radio was not capable even of some. There was 1 hour only, and the elements that was leading that radio were not capable and didn't have any background in using that, including the war, the seen and unseen inside the Labour Party members. Some were weak enough, but they used tactics to divide so strong. For example, Totir. In the Second National Congress of the Islamic Liberation Front, Totir was a member of the choosing committee and general director or president of the police bureau. So he tried to enlarge this office and make out of this office part and parcel that can create more problems inside the Labour Party and inside for his own benefit. The strongest man remained with Abdullah Idris Muhammad. Totil was not courageous to confront Abdullah. The other police bureau members were not courageous members. Be it Abdul Yassin, be it Ibrahim Muhammad Ali, be it Omar Muhammad, but they tried to encircle Abdullah by the hand of Totil, by the hand of others. Totil also wanted to create a part of a group going on secretly under the leadership of Tesfaye Takhledgi, which was the director of that office. They want to create another group. Imagine disaster after disaster. So, Totil did all what he can. And indirectly, Totil had his own secret meeting that began with his first meeting of the ELF and the EPLF in Ahmad particularly, before the National Congress, Second National Congress. Therefore, the trial of this was to weaken the military office of the Islamic Liberation Front. Unfortunately, that military office was able to go ahead with what he had. So, the ELF declared the liberation of cities. Tanzania was the first city to be liberated by the Islamic Liberation Front. This was the beginning of 77. And that war was led under the regime of Mahmoud Hassan. And here, with unseen hands of Totil, he wanted to create a problem among the leadership of the military office. He said Said Saleh was able, and he himself hate Said Saleh more than others because Said Saleh was a decent and able military leader. With such situation going on, happened all of a sudden a letter from Hurui Talabairu to the Revolutionary Council, which himself didn't even consider as able, but saying that we cannot go ahead confronting Ethiopia because we cannot dismantle our freedom. So let us have a dialogue for federation. I will continue in the next time the remaining of the history of the fatal end of the ELF. Thank you. تحياتي للجميع. Allora,